to meet with African American students at Harvard. And he wanted to get their sense of how they were thinking about the Middle East. Now let's remember that it was only a few weeks after the Six-Day War broke out and finished within those 6 days. And he wanted to get a sense of how people were thinking. Well, one of the students there, who was an acolyte of the radicalized SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, that had then associated with the Black Panthers and other radical organizations, said about those Zionist criminals, referring to Israel. And according to the account of Professor Lipset, Dr. King looked at that student and said, "Do not say that. Don't do that," was the direct quote. "You are not criticizing Zionism, you are going to anti-Semitism. That is anti-Semitism." Now this is a man, Reverend King, that had been to Israel once, but had never been to the western side of Jerusalem. He'd been to the Jordanian side, on the eastern side, and had visited the Christian sites, and had gone to some of the other cities like Nablus and Bethlehem, but stood up for moral clarity and stood in the face of Israelophobia. And that year was when Professor Dershowitz became a full professor, and he would then make part of your life's work the struggle against the Soviet Union and its imprisonment of Jews, such as Natan Sharansky, then called Anatoly Sharansky. And the second reminder of Israelophobia occurred, as I've come to learn, in an exchange that Professor Dershowitz had with the office of Angela Davis, who, as many of you know, was part of the SNCC, the same SNCC that incited against that young man at Harvard. And Professor Dershowitz, who is credited in large part for helping to save the life of Natan Sharansky, wrote a note asking her urgently if she, at that time visiting the Soviet Union as an avowed communist, would advocate on behalf of Jews who were imprisoned by the Soviet.
I had represented her in her murder case and secured an acquittal for her, so I thought she owed me at least the obligation to speak up on behalf of Soviet dissidents.
So thank you for that. And we go back, and what was the answer from the office of Angela Davis? Professor Dershowitz, those are not political prisoners. Those are Zionist, fascist enemies of socialism, period.